It's Monday, January 19th. Welcome to Scouting the League. Conference championships are set. Some great games. Two catches that I believe were ruled correctly. Maybe a PI call that I would have been more upset with. Some bad football here and there. Maybe outside the Seahawks, who really dominated their game. A bunch of teams that found a way to win. So we get Rams, Seahawks, Broncos, Patriots, backup quarterback in there. But again, some great games coming up next weekend. We'll probably hit on those at some point throughout this week. Again, how did these teams get there and what am I going to be looking for in these AFC and NFC championship games? In the NFL, Sean McDermott becomes the latest casualty of ownership not valuing leadership and consistency. I'd imagine he will be at the top of several of these teams' lists. He may not even get through the end of this week without a new head coaching spot if he wants one. Deservedly so. Again, he's done a lot with that franchise, getting them back to the top of the AFC, which why it makes that loss to the Broncos so disappointing. Then on the college front, the national championship finally happens tonight. Like many other things on the college football calendar, the timing is way off on this one. Should have been about 2 weeks ago, but here we are. What was I looking for in this game? Head back to the archives from last week. Check that one out. And while you're there, make sure you head over, like, subscribe, and share this podcast wherever you're listening and watching, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or that video portion over on YouTube. Hit those buttons. Let us know what you like about the show. Let us know what you don't like about the show. Either way, leave those comments. Hit the 5 stars and share with a friend as we continue to grow in all ways in 2026. You, the listeners, the watchers, are what is going to help us do that. So make sure you hitting those buttons. I am Rodrik David at RightStepADV on Twitter is where you can find me. My website, rsafootball.com, is where you can find out more about me. All that I do for scouts, agents, coaches, players, teams. If you are in the football world, hopefully there's a spot where we can work together. Go over, check it out, rsafootball.com, or find everything over on my Twitter. That is at RightStepADV. If you're a scout or aspiring scout, make sure you check out thescoutingcommunity.com for all I am doing, all we are doing together to help the scouting community. For NFL scouts, can mean a lot of different things. For aspiring scouts, it may just be pointing you in the right direction, but do the right things to make sure the scouting community is healthy, respected in the way that it needs to be. Also, check our partner over at bluemaka.com. Use code scouting20 when you're checking out with those insoles that upgrade every pair of shoes you have, whether they are shoes you are training with for that NFL combine, for pro days. If you're a scout, you just need some extra support in there, whether you have a turf toe injury, no matter what it is, the insoles that will upgrade your shoes and upgrade your performance at bluemaka.com. Use code scouting20 to let them know we sent you. Also, mark your calendars for Wednesday, February 25th, the Inside the League seminar at the Combine, 5:30 Eastern. Neil Stratton leads the way on the night, but Scouting the League will be there live for the event on both Twitter and YouTube. Make sure you check us out. Families of scouts curious about what goes on in Indy, make sure you tune in. Maybe see somebody you know get an award, whether it's a Bartlett Best Draft, something on the college side. Cheer them on from home. Again, that's 5:30 Eastern on the 25th. Scouting the League coming to you live from Indianapolis for the Inside the League seminar. Make sure you mark your calendars. We will also likely have a live episode at some point on Tuesday. So if you're in Indy, make sure you come find me, probably somewhere in that long hallway. Again, everybody knows where it's at. Today, we jump in. We start a new series that I'll be hitting on just about every Monday called Scouting Traits. In this series, I will talk about some of the traits NFL scouts use to evaluate and how they are viewed, weighed, and prioritized, and more. You may agree, disagree, somewhere in between. What can I promise you, though, is that these come directly out of a number of scouting manuals in the NFL. Yes, actual scouting manuals that NFL teams have and use for their scouts. NFL teams do know how to scout, do know how to evaluate better than those not with teams. Again, there's exceptions on both sides, of course. There are good evaluators not with teams. There are evaluators that probably shouldn't be on NFL teams anymore. But again, we're not going to get down that path. These are the traits. These are the things, the factors, the traits that NFL teams are looking for when they are going through the pre-draft process. And a lot of times in the free agency process, these are the traits, the factors that NFL scouts, pro scouts, college scouts are using to evaluate players. Before we jump into anything positional specific, we're going to talk about major factors today. We're going to talk about the big things that, regardless of the position, regardless of the team, these are going to be some of the most scrutinized aspects of every prospect. Of course, they're going to be weighed differently for each team. They're also going to be graded differently for every position. They're going to be weighed, prioritized differently. But again, every team is going to have some semblance, some majority of these in their major factors category. Again, on some positions, you're going to accept a little bit less. On some, it's going to be way more important. This is a part of the scouting, not just tape evaluation. This is about the scouting. These things should be part of your scouting. If you're doing the true scouting work, should be part of it. So let's jump in. And the first two, you hear it all the time. We talk about it here with everybody we talk about scouting with, is that character piece. Two types of character we're going to talk about real quick here. Football character versus football character. Yes, character is character, but again, football character, personal character are certainly going to weigh in differently. When we talk about football character, usually this one is weighed a little bit heavier than personal character is. When we think about football character, we're going to be thinking about, how is this guy in the weight room? What are his workout habits? How is he around his teammates, off-season program, early mornings? All those kinds of things. You think about, what is this player doing in the training room to get his body ready when it comes to camp time? Is he showing up in shape? We're talking about all these things. Is this guy, again, really falls into weight room, practice habits, all that kind of stuff. We're talking about his on-field behavior as well. Again, does this guy get a lot of penalties? Is he a hothead? Can you provoke him? Can you get under his skin? How is he as a teammate? Is he a good teammate? Is he showing guys up? Is he celebrating with those teammates? Again, you start talking about the on-field behavior, pre-practice, post-practice. Again, this is going to fall into a couple different categories. But again, you want to know is, what is this player doing to get himself ready to play on the football field? Again, practice habits go along with that. Football character is also going to encompass leadership in a lot of different ways. And again, something that I talk about with a lot of different prospects that I'm taking through pre-draft process is, most players that are going through this pre-draft process, getting ready for the 2026 NFL draft, are probably leaders on their current college team in some way. Very few of them will be leaders at the next level. There are certain leadership traits that players will have that scouts are going to work through. Again, leaders by example, leaders that have a voice, leaders in different ways. We want to find out who has those traits that will essentially ascend, maybe be a leader on our roster at the NFL level, with a bunch of grown men, a bunch of 30, 35-year-old men who can actually lead that kind of group. Again, less and less of those guys through the draft process every year. Important to find those. We want to know who's coachable. Again, how are you coached? Can you listen? Can you take different types of coaching, hard coaching, light coaching, intellectual coaching? We want to know all these things about those, your coachability. Again, all of that, probably a number of other things different teams look for. If you kind of really think about those when it comes to football character, this guy, is he trusted on the field when it matters for my team? Again, all that's going to go into the football character. On the personal character side, again, this is all that stuff that, again, this is about the person. Again, there's a difference between the football person, the off-field person. This is about all that stuff that is going to maybe keep them distracted, keep them off the field. And this is where, depending on the team, you can have wildly different opinions on how important personal character is. Again, off-field behavior. What is that family like? Again, do you have a crazy uncle? Are you a 4x4 guy, a 5x5 guy? Do you have different spots, different people in different NFL cities? We'll try to keep it PG here today. Again, are you doing things that is going to ultimately take from your paycheck, take from your time, take from your focus away from football? That is going to fall into that personal character aspect. Again, are you making good decisions is usually a lot of what it plays into. Again, maybe you don't want to be a clean, buttoned up citizen. But again, there's a line that you will walk to make sure it's not taking away from you on the field. Again, personality type is going to fall into this: some quiet, stoic, outgoing, charismatic, all those kinds of things. Again, anymore, IDP, Canadian, what kind of citizen is he? Does he have citizenship status? Does he have issues with the law? What are you doing away from the building? Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your resources? That's going to continue to give scouts and teams an insight into maybe how close to that ceiling they can get, and maybe how much we can trust you in these different roles that you're going to be taking. So again, character is always going to be the big pieces of these major factors that teams are going to hit on. After that, again, every player is going to be evaluated for their overall athletic ability. And this is one that's continually evolving as teams kind of decide, all right, how much does athletic ability really weigh into this? And again, athletic ability, a lot of debate, a lot of differing opinion on what all goes into quote unquote athletic ability. Quickness, change your direction. Does your 40 time, does your short shuttle, do all the analytics that come alongside everything that you have from testing, your catapult metrics, your speed metrics, your top speed, your consistent top speed, again, your acceleration. Are you a short area guy? Are you a long speed guy? Are you a track guy? Are you a explosive? All these things fall into athletic ability. And this is where the analytics with the on-field eye test really come together. You're probably going to end up with, again, whether it's a RAS score, whether it's a metric given to you by a scout. Again, these need to ultimately play together when it comes to tape, when it comes to testing numbers and analytics and everything like that. Again, Antoine Winfield Jr. out of Minnesota was always one of those guys that it didn't quite match, where his athletic ability was always good on film. His numbers came back very good. Again, you go back to the film, you sort it out. Hey, where does it all come out? Where does it all sort together? Consistency. We ultimately want the film to match what your numbers say. Again, when there's a discrepancy, you have to go back to the film. But again, you're going to get an athletic ability score through the process that's going to affect that major factors category. For different teams, competitiveness, urgency, grit, toughness, that kind of score is going to come into one of these. Every team talks about, hey, we want competitive, tough guys. Different teams factor it at higher levels. It was a huge point of emphasis, 16, 17, 18 for the Atlanta Falcons. Fast, physical, tough, competitive football teams. Again, different positions. Hey, we can take a little bit less. Maybe it's not as important in other positions. Maybe if you are slight in some other categories, different traits, again, that competitive level needs to be just a little bit higher. But again, the aggression level, the fourth quarter effort, maybe the lack of effort plays, do they show up? The urgency, are you a mauler? Are you looking to finish guys, bury guys? You have that edge, that nasty. All these things are going to show up with that competitiveness score, and you love a team with really competitive players. We get through these, again, mental football intelligence, how smart on the field. Again, this is different than that book smart piece. Again, how can this guy pick up the playbook? How does he pick up the playbook? Is he a reps guy? Does he want it on the board? Is he a film watcher? Can he adjust in games? Can he make adjustments? Can he go onto the field and come back and communicate with a coach on the sideline? All going to play into that mental, or that FBI, that football intelligence score that a player gets in their major factors. Again, this is one of those ones. Different positions have a completely different weight on this score. Corners, just go cover your dude. Again, there's going to be some systems that are going to be a little bit more complex. We need you to think a little bit more. 3-tech, get up the field, blow up the B gap. Again, really low football IQs. Now, your Grady Jarrett's of the world that are high football IQ, yeah, that's how you end up with a bunch more TFLs, because you can anticipate. You see tendencies. You see guys lean in different ways. All this natural feel, all this in-game adjustment, all the little things guys like Grady can pick up on, make them the player that they are over the years. So again, that football, that mental, that FBI is going to be very important in that major factors. Durability is always a huge one, and this is where it starts to get outside of the scouts' hands a little bit. Again, have to get the athletic trainers, have to get your team doctors involved. It's not about us as scouts predicting whether this player will stay healthy. It's more about what injuries have happened and how is this player getting back on the field or staying on the field. Again, you talk about, hey, this guy's had catastrophic injuries, nagging injuries. When you start talking about those, what is this player doing during the week to get back on the field? What is this player doing post surgery? What is the time frame it takes to get back from, again, a routine surgery? Again, ACLs, shoulders anymore. Hey, there's kind of a standard time frame for these guys getting back. If you're long, if you're short, again, it play into all these things. You ask questions about vision, contacts, sickle cell, family history. Is there anything that this player does to play through pain? Is he constantly a headache for athletic trainers? There have been good players who were nightmares for athletic trainers, and it absolutely affects the way they're viewed from a durability standpoint, because just like, college teams don't like dealing with it, NFL teams don't want to deal with it, and that will affect where a player ultimately falls. Production is going to be the last one that I hit on here. All production is not created equal. Again, it kind of goes without saying. You start thinking about situational versus just flat objective numbers. You think about guys playing in the SEC as opposed to FCS level. You talk about maybe SEC Big Ten as opposed to how the Big 12 offenses look. Again, all of it matters. You start comparing top level competition. Scouts are going to look at your top games. We want to see production in those games. If you disappear against your top level competition, that does not go well. Again, third downs, situational pass rushing. We want to see production at all times. We want to see consistent production, and that production is ultimately, there's going to be that analytics score. It's going to be able to factor all that in, but scouts are going to look at it and be like, hey, no. The production's down. These are the reasons. This is why. These are the things that we saw that says this is going to be a productive player. Again, Darnell Washington out of Georgia, one of those rare guys who has had more production in the NFL and college. Again, you talk about role, you talk about all those things. Production's absolutely going to matter, though. Major factors are going to show up in every scouting report that every player has. Whether your team weighs certain ones more, certain ones less, has additional ones, it's all going to matter. What I didn't highlight, let me know. At RightStepADV is where you can find me. Let me know what major factors you think your team or you would use if you were running a team, over at RightStepADV on Twitter. Next week, we're going to jump in specifically on quarterback traits. That's going to be a really fun one. Start to lead to my stacking of quarterbacks as we really start to get a nice landscape of what this 2026 draft class is going to look like. I will tell you, quarterback from Fernando Mendoza is going to be my number one. Again, that's a spoiler alert. We'll talk about the rest of the guys after that, maybe 5, 6, 7 guys maybe in that list. Again, draftable quarterbacks, who's developmental, all that. But quarterback traits are going to be coming next week, next Monday along. But first, we're going to talk about the traits that are going to be evaluated with those. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you're letting us know. Let me know in the comments wherever you are at what you think. Fun talking all things scouting, talking about traits, talking about everything at the combine, everything through this process, all-star games, check-ins here on Scouting the League.